At first, everyone thought the canine dog was just acting strange. But when he growled at the school principal during a morning assembly, no one could have imagined what he would reveal just 3 days later. What he uncovered shocked the entire town, and saved an innocent girl's life. Welcome to Heroic Animals, the channel where true stories of bravery come to life. From loyal dogs to life-saving companions, we bring you incredible tales that prove animals are more than just pets, they're heroes. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share this story if it moved you. Now, let's begin today's unforgettable story. It was supposed to be just another Monday at Crest Hill Elementary. The morning sun peeked through thick clouds, casting a sleepy golden hue over the small-town school. Kids bustled into the building, laughing, shouting, dragging backpacks twice their size. But in the far corner of the schoolyard, one girl stood alone. Ellie. She was 11, quiet, too quiet for her age. She always wore long sleeves, even in the heat, and clutched her notebook like it was a shield. Most kids ignored her, others whispered things behind her back, and some weren't so subtle. That morning, she arrived earlier than usual. She sat on a bench beneath the old oak tree, watching the other kids play tag. She didn't join in, she never did. From across the yard, a low growl broke the morning calm. Bruno, the retired canine dog, had recently been adopted by the school's new safety program. Once a hero in the police force, Bruno now spent his days calmly patrolling the school with Officer Martinez. A gentle, sharp-eyed woman who trusted Bruno more than anyone else in her life. Bruno was not the type to growl without reason. But this time, he did, and he didn't stop. The growl began the moment Principal Harrow stepped onto the playground. He wasn't in a rush. He rarely was. With his pressed shirt, polished shoes, and soft voice, Principal Harrow had the kind of presence adults admired. But kids? They feared him, though no one could ever explain exactly why. Bruno's ears perked up, hackles raised. As Harrow walked past, the dog snarled, then barked, loud, sharp, and aimed straight at the principal. Gasps filled the schoolyard. Officer Martinez was caught off guard. She quickly pulled Bruno back by the leash. Bruno, stop, that's enough. But Bruno wouldn't stop. His body remained tense, every muscle coiled, his gaze locked on Principal Harrow. The principal froze, then offered a tight-lipped smile. Seems your dog's having a rough morning. Officer. Martinez forced a nervous chuckle. I'm sorry, sir, he's never done that before. Harrow crouched slightly, extended a hand in mock friendliness. Easy, boy, I'm not your enemy. Bruno bared his teeth. Ellie saw the whole thing. And for the first time in weeks, her eyes showed something more than fear. They showed hope. She stood up, slowly walked away from the bench and back toward the building. Unnoticed, but not by Bruno. As Ellie passed by, Bruno's attention shifted instantly. The dog stopped growling, calmed almost immediately, and turned to watch her disappear into the hallway. He let out a low, almost mournful whine. Officer Martinez looked at her partner. What is it, boy? He didn't answer, of course. But he didn't need to. His body language said everything. Something wasn't right. Something about Ellie. And something about Principal Harrow. That night, Officer Martinez reviewed the footage from the school's security cameras, trying to understand Bruno's strange behavior. She found nothing obvious, at least, but deep in her gut, she felt the tension Bruno had sensed too. She had worked with him for 6 years in the force. Bruno never barked without a reason. And 3 days later, the whole town would understand why. The next morning, rain trickled across the windows of Crest Hill Elementary. It wasn't heavy, just the kind that made the halls smell of wet sneakers and chalk dust. Bruno sat quietly beside Officer Martinez in the main office, his eyes fixed on the hallway like he was waiting for someone. He hadn't barked all morning, but his tail didn't wag either. Still thinking about yesterday, huh? Martinez said softly, scratching the thick fur behind his ears. He didn't respond, just stayed still, gaze unblinking. Then Ellie walked in. She didn't make eye contact with anyone. Her clothes were damp. Her hair looked like she had forgotten to brush it. She passed the front office, heading toward the lockers. Bruno stood up immediately. His nose twitched. Then, to everyone's surprise, he began to follow her. Bruno, Martinez called, but he didn't listen. He trotted after Ellie, tail low, as if drawn by something she couldn't see. Ellie stopped at her locker. The hallway was empty this early. As she turned the dial on the lock, something fluttered out from the vent in the door, a torn piece of notebook paper. She didn't notice, but Bruno did. He gently stepped forward, nose nudging the paper until it slid free. Then he picked it up in his mouth and trotted back to Martinez. "Hey, what have you got there?" she asked, reaching for it. It was crumpled, soggy from the rain and stained in one corner with something brown. Mud? Or something else? Martinez smoothed it out, carefully. It read, "Please help me. He comes into the girls' restroom when no one's looking. Don't let him near me again." No name, no date, just panic scratched into paper. Martinez's blood ran cold. She looked up, but Ellie was gone. Vanished around the corner like a ghost. Bruno whined. Martinez called the school counselor and quietly asked if anything unusual had been reported by students. Nothing. No complaints. No red flags. Just the same old small-town routine. But something about the note felt real. Too real. Later that day, she walked the perimeter of the schoolyard during lunch while Bruno sniffed every corner like he was on patrol again. And then he stopped, near the dumpster behind the gym. He barked once, then again. Martinez followed and crouched beside him. There, wedged behind the trash bin, was a second piece of paper. This one torn across the bottom. Said, "If I tell anyone, no one will believe me. He's the principal." Martinez's heart pounded. She looked around. No cameras faced this blind spot. No teachers on duty nearby. No students in sight. Bruno was pacing now, back and forth, as if urging her to act. But what could she do? 2 anonymous notes. No proof. No witness. If she accused the principal without hard evidence, her badge, and Bruno's place here, would be gone. Still, she couldn't ignore it. That night, as she lay in bed, the same question kept her awake. What is Bruno trying to tell me, and why does it feel like time is running out? She didn't know it then. But in less than 48 hours, Bruno would vanish, and the girl no one listened to would disappear with him. The storm rolled in before dawn. Thunder growled low across the horizon as dark clouds swallowed Crest Hill's pale morning light. Officer Martinez pulled into the school parking lot earlier than usual, her thoughts still tangled with those 2 torn notes. Bruno was oddly quiet in the back seat. Except, he wasn't there. Her heart dropped. She opened the back door, thinking maybe he was lying down. Nothing. "Bruno?" she called, voice rising. "Bruno." The back gate of her patrol SUV was unlatched. She stared at it, stunned. She always checked the locks. Always. Had she been so distracted last night that she forgot? Martinez scanned the parking lot. No movement, just falling rain. Inside the building, the staff was already buzzing. Mr. Carl, the janitor, mentioned seeing a large dog running across the soccer field before sunrise. Martinez's throat tightened. Bruno never ran off. Not in 6 years. Not once. Unless he was tracking something. At first, she hoped he'd show up by mid-morning. Maybe he was chasing a scent and would come back, tail wagging, like the stubborn old partner he was. But as noon came and went, dread settled in. Then the second blow hit. Ellie didn't show up for class. The front office called her mother. No answer. A welfare check was dispatched to the girl's home. The lights were off. No car in the driveway. Door locked. No signs of forced entry, but no one answered. Something was wrong. Martinez drove straight there, ignoring protocol. Rain lashed the windshield. Her gut was screaming now, screaming louder than Bruno's bark ever could. She parked, got out, and ran to the porch. Knocked, rang the bell. Nothing. Then she noticed it, a small smear of dirt on the side of the back door. And a partial paw print, wet, fresh, unmistakable. "Bruno?" she whispered, backing away. Her radio crackled just then. "All units, be advised. Report of a possible runaway from Crest Hill Elementary. Female, 11 years old. Name, Ellie Jensen. Subject may be endangered." Martinez clenched the wheel as she pulled away, fists tight. It wasn't a coincidence. Bruno had left that morning on his own. Something had drawn him out. Something he sensed, or someone. And now Ellie was missing too. The police launched a formal search. Her photo was circulated. Drones were sent up to scan the forest trail near the school. Nothing. No trace. Until evening came. That's when Martinez received a call from the park ranger 2 towns over. "Officer, we think we've found your dog." She sped through winding roads and pouring rain to reach the old ranger station just before nightfall. Bruno was sitting outside the building, soaked, panting, and bleeding from a cut near his paw, but alive. He didn't bark, didn't move, just stared at her, like he'd been waiting. Martinez dropped to her knees and hugged him. "Where've you been, partner?" And then, Bruno turned. He limped toward the tree line, looked back, barked once, then kept going. Martinez stood, heart pounding again. Bruno wasn't done. He had come to lead her somewhere. Something in the woods. Something urgent. And maybe, someone. Bruno limped steadily through the rain-soaked woods. His nose low to the ground. Tail rigid with purpose. Officer Martinez followed close behind. Her boots sinking into the muddy trail. Every few steps, she glanced over her shoulder, half expecting someone, or something, to appear from the shadows. The storm had quieted, but a heavy mist still hung low, wrapping around the trees like a warning. "Where are you taking me, boy?" she whispered. Bruno didn't pause. They moved deeper into the woods, past the familiar trail and toward an old chain-link fence, half collapsed and forgotten. On the other side, hidden beneath wild ivy, was the shell of a building Martinez hadn't seen in years. The maintenance shed. It had been abandoned a decade ago when the district built a new utility center on the other side of town. Most people didn't even know it was still here. No cameras, no lights, just decaying walls and shadows. Bruno scratched at the door. Martinez hesitated. "You sure?" He growled softly. She reached for her flashlight, drew her service pistol, and slowly pushed the door open. The hinges shrieked. Inside, the smell hit her first: stale air, mold, and something faintly metallic. "Ellie?" she called out. "Ellie, it's Officer Martinez." Silence. She stepped inside. The beam of her flashlight swept across broken shelves. A toppled chair. A pile of rags, then stopped. A shoe. A small, mud-stained sneaker. Martinez froze. "Ellie?" Her voice cracked. Bruno darted forward, barking sharply now, pawing at the floor near the back corner. She rushed over, heart hammering. There, partially hidden under a warped plywood panel, was a narrow opening. Barely enough space for a child to crawl through. Martinez dropped to her knees. "Ellie, are you in there?" A faint sound came back. A sob. She shoved the board aside, revealing a shallow crawl space. Inside, curled into herself like a frightened animal, was Ellie. Her face was pale, her arms bruised, her eyes, wide, glassy, locked onto Bruno first. "Bruno," she whispered. He found me." Martinez crawled halfway in and gently pulled the girl out, cradling her against her chest. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. I've got you." Bruno stood protectively beside them, his body between Ellie and the door. Martinez radioed for backup, ambulance, everything. Her hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. As they waited, Ellie gripped her shirt and whispered. "He said, no one would come. That no one would believe me." Martinez leaned in. "Who said that?" Ellie hesitated, then mouthed the words, "Principal Harrow." Martinez didn't flinch. She looked down at Bruno. The growl at the assembly. The notes. The disappearance. The trail through the woods. Bruno had known. He had known all along. The emergency lights painted the woods in a cold red glow. Rain still fell in scattered drops as paramedics wrapped Ellie in a thermal blanket, her tiny form shaking more from trauma than cold. Officer Martinez knelt beside her, shielding her from the noise. Bruno sat like a statue behind them, soaked, battered, but watchful. "Ellie," Martinez said gently, "you're safe now. No one's going to hurt you again. But I need you to tell me what happened. Just whatever you can." Ellie looked up with tired, red-rimmed eyes. "Will you believe me?" Martinez nodded, her voice firm. "Yes, I promise." The girl took a deep, trembling breath. "He told me to stay after class 2 weeks ago. Said he wanted to talk about my behavior, but he locked the door. Said I was special." Her voice broke. Martinez clenched her jaw. "Did he hurt you?" Ellie nodded slowly. "He said no one would believe me. He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure my mom lost her job. He knew where we lived." The officer's heart twisted. All those days Ellie sat alone. All the warning signs no one noticed, or chose not to. And Bruno, Bruno had seen it, had sensed it. He caught me writing a letter. Ellie whispered. That's why he locked me in the shed. Said I was making things up. That the school would turn against me. How did Bruno find you? The girl looked at the dog and smiled through her tears. I left my scarf by the gym. I knew he might smell it. He was the only one I trusted. Martinez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Bruno had followed the scent, crossed town lines, ignored commands, and led her straight to the one place no one had thought to search. The ambulance doors closed. Ellie was taken to the hospital for treatment and further questioning. Martinez stood alone for a moment, letting it sink in. Then she turned to Bruno. You knew, all along. He licked her hand once, then sat down again, silent. Back at the station, Martinez filed her initial report and immediately requested that Principal Harrow be brought in for questioning. But things didn't go as expected. Chief Randall read the statement, his face unreadable. It's a strong story, Grace, but it's still a story. No physical evidence, no video, just the word of a traumatized child and AK-9's behavior. Martinez stared at him. Are you serious? He leaned back in his chair. Do you know who Harrow is? He's been principal here for nearly 20 years. His brother sits on the school board. His wife's on the town council. I don't care if he's the mayor's godfather. She snapped. A girl was locked in an abandoned shed. She didn't put herself there. Are you really telling me that's not enough to act? Chief Randall sighed. We'll investigate, but no arrests. Not without concrete evidence. Martinez left the office boiling. She stormed down the hallway, Bruno at her side. As they passed the bulletin board near the front desk, something caught her eye. A photo. School staff and volunteers, taken last year at a fundraiser. She stopped. There, in the background, barely visible, stood Harrow. His hand rested on Ellie's shoulder. But it wasn't the hand that stopped her. It was Ellie's face. Frozen, blank, eyes hollow. Martinez tore the photo down and stared at it. She didn't have a confession. Not yet. But Bruno had led her to the truth. Now it was her job to prove it. The rain finally stopped, but the unease in Officer Martinez's chest only deepened. Bruno had been restless all morning. He paced the office, circled the doors, barked toward the hallway that led to the school files archive. It wasn't like him. He usually rested after a case. But this time, it was different. He was still working, still warning. Martinez had stayed up all night reviewing her notes. Every word Ellie said echoed in her mind. The scarf, the shed, the letter. She knew Harrow was behind it. But with the town's leadership protecting him, she needed more than gut instinct and a brave little girl's testimony. She needed irrefutable proof. Bruno suddenly growled, low and sharp, then ran to the supply closet next to the security office. He pawed at the door like something was behind it. Martinez followed, flashlight in hand. You think something's in there? She opened the door slowly. Inside, shelves of toner, paper, janitorial supplies. But Bruno didn't stop. He moved to the far wall, where a loose panel had been lazily nailed over a hole from an old maintenance repair. He barked, twice. Martinez knelt down and pried the panel loose. Behind it, nestled between insulation and wooden beams, was a small plastic lunchbox. Pink, dusty, faded stickers of butterflies still clinging to the lid. She opened it slowly. Inside were several items. A frayed friendship bracelet, a tiny key, a folded piece of paper, and a school ID badge, cracked down the middle. It belonged to a girl named Maya Trenton. Martinez's breath caught. She hadn't heard that name in years. Maya was a 7th grader who had gone missing from Crest Hill almost 9 years ago. The case had gone cold. No evidence, no suspects. It was eventually ruled a runaway. She opened the folded paper. He said I'd never see my mom again if I didn't keep quiet. I'm scared. I think he's watching me even when I'm at home. He's the principal. I saw what he did to the others. I don't want to be next. Martinez's hands trembled. She rushed back to her desk and pulled the archived police report on Maya Trenton. The original report was vague. Statements from school staff saying she was emotionally unstable. That she had a history of skipping class. Harrow's name appeared only once, as the person who filed her last disciplinary write-up. Martinez grabbed her phone and called Maya's mother. The voice on the other end cracked with emotion. I always knew, she didn't just run. But no one listened. Martinez stood in stunned silence. This wasn't just about Ellie. This was bigger, older, systemic. Bruno had sniffed it out again, literally unearthed a buried truth hidden inside the school walls. She looked at him, eyes burning. You've been telling us for days. And we didn't listen. Bruno wagged his tail once. Just once, but his expression stayed focused, as if he knew they were running out of time. That evening, Martinez met with a trusted journalist from the local paper. She slid the lunchbox and its contents across the table. I'm breaking protocol, but this town needs to know. The journalist nodded grimly. I'll print everything, but you better watch your back. I'm not the one he should be afraid of, she said. It's the dog who doesn't stop digging. The next morning, Crest Hill woke to a front-page headline that shattered the town's fragile calm. Missing girls' belongings found hidden at Crest Hill Elementary, Principal Harrow named in allegations. The story ran with photos, the pink lunchbox, the cracked ID badge, and a blurry school yearbook shot of Maya Trenton, smiling. Forever 13. The article quoted an unnamed officer and detailed the pattern of ignored complaints, mysteriously vanished records, and the haunting note Ellie had written. By 8 a.m., the school was surrounded by news vans. Parents pulled their kids from class. Teachers whispered in corners. A PTA emergency meeting was called. Tensions boiled. And Harrow? He didn't flinch. He stood at the front steps of the school, flanked by 2 lawyers, delivering a perfectly rehearsed statement. I am the target of a malicious smear campaign based on circumstantial gossip and an anonymous letter. I have dedicated my life to this school. To these children, I will not step down. Martinez watched the press conference from her cruiser. Bruno in the passenger seat beside her. He's playing the victim, she muttered. Unbelievable. Bruno didn't bark. He didn't growl. He stared at the screen with eyes so steady. It was as if he were memorizing Harrow's face. That afternoon, Martinez was called back to the school, not by the chief, but by someone unexpected. A janitor, mid-50s, shaky hands, name tag, Louis Carmen. He asked to speak privately. Away from the others, Bruno sat quietly behind Martinez, watching the man closely. Louis hesitated. I saw something. Back then, with Maya. Martinez leaned forward. What did you see? She came to me crying one afternoon. Said Harrow had followed her into the art room and locked the door. I tried to report it. I swear I did. But the next day, my complaint disappeared. And Harrow, he called me into his office. Said if I valued my job, I'd shut my mouth. Why come forward now? Martinez asked. His voice cracked. Because your dog keeps staring at me like he knows. And because I'm tired of being a coward. He reached into his pocket and handed Martinez a small flash drive. Security footage. The day Maya vanished. I saved a copy off the record. It's not much. Just Harrow entering the old A-wing hallway, alone. Except that hallway had been locked for weeks. No reason for anyone to be there. Martinez took it. Thank you, Mr. Carmen. You did the right thing. Bruno stepped forward and sniffed the janitor's pant leg once, then sat. The man looked down and gave a sad smile. Guess I passed the test. Back at the station, Martinez played the footage. Grainy, time stamped, and just as Carmen said, Harrow appeared at 3:17 p.m. entering a section of the school that had been decommissioned months earlier. No kids had access. No staff were scheduled. But Harrow had gone in. And he didn't come out, for 47 minutes. Martinez stared at the timestamp. That was the exact window Maya Trenton went missing. She turned to Bruno. This is it. Boy, it's not just suspicion anymore. It's evidence. Bruno stood, ears alert. But before Martinez could take it to the chief, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She picked up. If you care about that dog, you'll back off. Click. Silence. Her blood went cold. Bruno growled, deep and guttural. Martinez stared at the phone. Then down at her partner. He's scared of you, Bruno. And that means we're close. She stood, clipped on her badge, and holstered her sidearm. It's time to end this. The sun was already setting when Officer Martinez pulled into the empty parking lot behind Crest Hill Elementary. The school was quiet, too quiet. Bruno jumped out of the cruiser before she could even open the door. His nose twitched, ears perked. He moved with purpose, no hesitation, no fear. Martinez followed, flashlight and radio ready. They didn't go to the front entrance. Bruno headed toward the side of the building, toward the sealed A-wing hallway. It had been padlocked for years after an asbestos scare, then quietly ignored by the district. But Bruno stopped in front of it and barked once, sharp. Urgent. Martinez knelt. The lock had been tampered with. Fresh scratch marks. And the air had the faintest scent of bleach and rust. She drew her weapon and slowly opened the heavy door. The air was stale. Darkness pressed in. She swept the beam of her flashlight across broken lockers, collapsed ceiling tiles, and dust that hadn't been touched in years. Except one set of footprints. Two sets. Actually, one small, one large. She moved fast. At the end of the hall was an old janitor's closet, supposedly sealed off. Bruno lunged at it, barking wildly now. She kicked it open, and there he was, Principal Harrow, holding Ellie, his hand clamped over her mouth, a knife in the other. Her eyes locked with Martinez's, pleading. "Don't move," Martinez shouted, gun raised. "Let her go. Now." Harrow's voice was eerily calm. "She was going to ruin everything. Do you understand what she did?" Bruno growled low and took a step forward. "I'll do it," Harrow snapped, pressing the blade tighter. "Don't test me." Martinez didn't blink. "She's a child, and your secrets are done. You think anyone will believe her?" Harrow hissed. "After all the good I've done for this town?" Bruno inched forward again. Martinez's tone shifted, cold and final. "They'll believe the footage, the notes, the hidden lunchbox, the janitor, Maya's mother, me." Bruno sprang. A blur of fur and muscle launched forward, jaws clamping down on Harrow's wrist. He screamed, dropping the knife. Ellie stumbled back into Martinez's arms. Martinez dragged her away as Bruno held Harrow down. Teeth bared but not biting further, just pinning. Within minutes, backup arrived. Harrow was arrested on the spot. Ellie was wrapped in an emergency blanket again, shaken but safe. For real this time. Bruno stood proudly at Martinez's side, chest rising and falling, eyes still locked on the man who had fooled everyone, except him. 1 week later, the school board held an emergency vote. Principal Harrow was officially removed from his position. Formal charges were filed: kidnapping, attempted assault, multiple counts of abuse spanning years. Investigators reopened Maya Trenton's case. A forensics team found DNA traces behind the sealed A-wing, enough to confirm she had been there. Likely in her final moments. The silence that had ruled Crest Hill for years was finally broken. Ellie spoke at the hearing. Soft, but clear. "If Bruno hadn't believed me, I wouldn't be here." And the town listened. At the town square, a small ceremony was held. Not a parade, not something flashy, but something real. Officer Martinez stood before a modest crowd of parents, students, and local officials. Ellie stood beside her, holding Bruno's leash tightly. "Some heroes wear badges," Martinez said. "Others wear fur." She turned to Bruno. "For trusting what no one else would. For finding the lost. For protecting the innocent, we thank you." Bruno barked once, tail wagging slowly. Ellie smiled, reaching down to hug him. For the first time in months, she didn't flinch at a touch. They say animals can sense what we can't. But sometimes, it's not just instinct, it's courage. Bruno wasn't just a retired K9. He was the one soul in a town full of doubt who listened when a little girl cried for help. And because of that, a life was saved. A monster was exposed. And a silence was shattered forever. If this story moved you, help us honor Bruno and dogs like him by sharing this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Heroic Animals for more true stories of loyalty, bravery, and justice. And drop a comment below. What would you have done if Bruno were your dog? Paw speech balloon.